I've been waiting to film this video for years, and today is the day I finally get to share it with you. Hi, if you're new there, my name's Jen and I'm That Props Girl, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a parasol from a regular umbrella. This is one that I made for Mary Poppins for Mrs. Banks, and I am so happy with how it turned out. So if you are keen to see the process and how I made that happen, then stick around. Be sure to smash that like button because it lets me know you want to see more content like this, as well as consider hitting that subscribe button and bell so that you don't miss any of my future content. And with all that said and done, let's jump straight into the video. Now, before I jump into the tutorial, I wanted to share with you why this video is so special to me and so significant. So in 2017, I worked on another production of Mary Poppins, and I actually had to make 40 parasols for this production for Jolly Holiday because every one of the female dancers had a parasol, and it was an extremely laborious task, and I was very young and I had no idea how to make a parasol, and it was much cheaper to make them than it was to buy them, so I just had to figure it out. And after many failed attempts, I did, and that's the method that I use today. But it was really cool to be able to go back and do this one more time, something that I haven't done for many years. And it was also cool to see how much I've learned since making the originals. And I did do a few little tweaks and changes in this one. So you are getting a new and improved, updated method. As I said, it's very special that I get to share this with you guys because I started my channel in 2019 and I've been waiting to have an excuse to make one ever since, and today is finally the day. Now that our history is out of the way, I'm just going to go through a few materials that we'll need to make this happen. Alright, so I want to start with a disclaimer by saying that the colour of the parasol does not matter. If you want to make a green parasol, make a green parasol. I was just making this one pink because it was for Winifred Banks. So, of course, you're going to need an umbrella. Now, I do recommend using a cheaper one, and I try and get the ones with the clear plastic on the outside. I just find that it's easier to make a template that way, but you can choose your own adventure there. You'll also, of course, need some fabric as well. Now, for the inner layer, I like to use just a cheaper cotton fabric. I use either a drill or a poplin. I also think that I used an old bed sheet on the inside of this. It doesn't really matter so long as it is a cotton or a cotton blend and it's quite strong. You'll also need some lace, or you can use a synthetic lace alternative to go over the outside as well. I used real lace for this, but I've also made this happen with synthetic lace and it works just the same. I also used ribbon as well for the detailing. This is optional, but I do recommend using ribbon. You will also need a sewing machine, fabric scissors, regular scissors, a needle and thread, and some hot glue. Now, step number one may seem obvious, but iron your fabric. I am just ironing the under layer of fabric, and the reason is because you can see the creases. Once that's done, set it aside, and now we're going to take apart the umbrella. Start with the spokes at the bottom by unhooking them, and then remove the top piece, and then slide that sheet off the top. Then we are going to locate one of the triangles and we're going to cut that out. This is going to serve as our template. Once you've cut that out, get either a sheet of card, or you can do what I did and used a few sheets of A3 paper, and we're going to trace around the outside to make a template. You might want to add a little bit of give on the outside for a seam allowance as well. So maybe just counter for 1 centimeter either side to just allow you to have a little bit of wriggle room there. I'm also making a smaller triangle, which is going to be our template for the inner layer. Now, make sure that the width on the outside of the triangle is the same, and it's just the bottom which is shorter. Now, as you can see, I have made an inverted triangle at the base of both my layers. That is completely optional. You don't have to do that. Make it flat if you want. If you go in the reverse though, it might start to sag. So just keep that in mind when you are making your parasol. Next, we're going to start tracing these onto our fabric. So I started with the inner triangles. It really doesn't matter which one you go with. I went in with a pencil. You can use a fabric marker or whatever you want. None of that is really important. You're not going to see these lines, but go in, trace around the outside. You need 8 of these for each shape. You can also use a rotary cutter if you are getting tired of cutting with scissors, because I can guarantee you I certainly was, and when I had to make 40 of these, I really needed a rotary cutter. I do want to put in a little disclaimer here before we get too much further ahead, is that if you want to have more detailing on that inner layer or do some sort of pattern maybe on each of your inner layer triangles, that is completely up to you. I'm going to leave that in your hands and do whatever you like. I did not do that for this, and there is a reason for that. And that is because these parasols were being used on stage, and the more of those holes that we made, the more the lighting would filter through. I had quite a big area that was more of a shaded area because that allowed the lighting to sort of be a little bit blocked and created some shadow. Now we're going to start separating them. So pair them up. So we want one of the outer layers with every piece of lace and line them up so you've got them sitting flush on top of each other, and then start to pin them together. Then we're going to take all of them individually and just sew that inner layer to the outside of the lace. So we want to pop that on our sewing machine with the outer layer facing up, and we're going to sew down the sides just until we get to the end of that inner layer. If you want to go with the little bottom bit, you can, or you can just do a couple of little tack stitches in the middle to stop it from flopping on the inside, but that is completely optional. I also want to say too, the more narrow your triangles are, the less give your parasol will have. So if you want it to sit flat out like that, then you want to have bigger triangles because they're just going to be able to go straight out when you open the umbrella. But if you want it to have more of a dome shape, then you need to have more tension on your spokes. When you buy your umbrella, take a look at it when it opens and see what you think about the shape of it. And if you want to change that, then you might have to change the angles of your triangles. Now, this may also come with trial and error. When I started making parasols, it certainly did. And I had to learn what sort of feel I wanted. And that's not something that I can teach you. All I can show you is my method, and you may have to tweak this along the way. Once all your edges are sewn, then we're going to take 2 of your completed triangles and place them back to back. So we want to take our lace side and place it with another lace side and make sure they sit flat. And then we're going to pin them together and place it on our sewing machine. And we're going to sew down just one of the sides to create a seam. Then you should be able to open this back up like a book, and then they'll be attached. So then you want to complete this process around until you've done the entire exterior of the parasol. As you've probably gathered by now, this is quite a time-consuming ordeal, and it is not for the faint-hearted. It took me several days to make this happen, and I wasn't working all day, but it can be quite time consuming, and you can only imagine how much time it took me to make 40 of these. So if you are thinking, wow, this is a lot of effort to go to, it is, but the end result is so worth it. Now you can leave it here if you like and then just put in some of the finishing details that I do later in the video, but I really wanted to elevate this. So I went in and I made some ruffles. These are the settings that I put my sewing machine on to make ruffles because I didn't have the right foot to make that happen. Now, There are multiple YouTube videos out here on how to make ruffles with a general sewing machine. So I'm not really going to go into it, but you can find a lot of them out there. As I said, if you have this model of sewing machine, this is what I did. I sewed these ruffles onto ribbon, and you can do this on regular fabric. I just chose to do it on ribbon. Now, when I cut my ribbon, I made sure that it was double the length of the edge that I wanted to put it on. The reason was that once we make a ruffle, it shrinks. So I stitched across it down the center, and then I pulled the bobbin thread to make the ribbon gather together. Then once I'd done this for all of the sides, I went in and slowly stitched that along the edge of the parasol. I had some spare ribbon, so I made that into some small clusters of ruffles, and I'm gonna get to that in just a minute. I also took this thinner white ribbon and tied that into some little bows, and I put them and the ruffles in alternating places across the top just to add a little bit more detailing. And to attach these, I hand stitched them in. You could also hot glue them. In 2017, when I wasn't that great at hand stitching, I just hot glued them. And also in 2017, I didn't know how to do ruffles, and so along the edging, I just glued ribbon on. You can totally do that. There's no issue with it. They look great either way. Speaking of hand stitching, it's now time to put that layer back over the umbrella. So put it over the umbrella when it's closed, then go through and hand stitch your seams onto the umbrella. As I said, I do recommend doing this when the umbrella is closed, but you'll just have to make sure that you're keeping track of which spoke is which, because I have sewn them to the wrong spoke before and it's quite annoying. I also recommend hand stitching them in because it gives the top layer a little bit of give more than hot glue would. So to do this, if this is the spoke and you've got your layer here, you basically want to come from the underside, and I just poked my needle up and just basically went around and around and around and did a few knots through it. And I did that above the inner spokes that come up like this, and then again a little bit further down on the longer part. Now with your ends, I do recommend using hot glue just to anchor them, and I also use hot glue at the top when I'm placing that dome bit back on top. If you've got a little bit of excess spoke hanging out the end, don't fret about it. You can just cover it in ribbon and dull it down with a glob of hot glue on the end, and it's not going to be as dangerous. And there you are, we are done. Now, if you want to extend the handle and make it into more of a proper parasol where you had the high handle, that is completely up to you. I didn't do that in this instance because that's not what the director wanted. All in all, the process of actually making the parasol is all the same. It is very labor intensive, but as you can see, it's so worth it. I am so glad that I finally got to share this with you guys, and I hope you liked the end result as much as I did. Drop me a comment down below letting me know what you think and whether or not you're going to try this at home. Give this video a like as well, and consider hitting that subscribe button and bell so that you don't miss any of my upcoming content. I said this in my previous video, but I have got a complete and utter backlog of content that I am so keen to share with you all. I hope you guys have an excellent week, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.